Refreshing the technology. I think we've got it working. Just give us a moment to make sure we are good to go and rolling. All right, I think we have got the tech worked out. And so we've got Tim Skeet, new president of Traveler Century Club here today. We're trying split screen for the first time, I think getting it working for our EPS self-quarantine open mic. We're going to take questions in the comments. I think the tradition in a lot of these is the happy hour. So the tea I'm drinking today is it's actually goji leaves. You might be familiar with the goji berry. That's a new popular health food. It's been popular in China for years and years to put the berries in mix in with tea, the red berries. These are the leaves, which I had never seen sold as a tea or infusion, but saw them a couple of years ago on a trip to Fujian, which I mentioned. I collected some different teas, so that's what I'm sipping. It's caffeine free, but I'm charged up, ready to go. So again, for those that are joining, I'm here with Tim Skeet, the new Traveler Century Club president, and
Good afternoon, everyone.
He's also an airline employee out of Calgary. And so the hot topic of coronavirus and travel disruptions, he's particularly well positioned to join in and comment on that. And then we're also going to talk about his vision for Traveler Century Club, getting it much more interactive, what he's doing with new initiatives, new geography. So we're going to take questions in the comments. I'll ask questions as well. We'll have a fun session. And thank you all. I see people popping up. We're just going to get rolling along. So Tim, welcome. Thank you for joining us on Every Passport Stamp. And what's it like to be working at a almost deserted airport?
Thank you very much, Stefan, for having me. And thank you to everybody who's joining in with Stefan as well. Working at an airport right now, I've got to tell you, it's been quite a trying time over the past 2 to 3 months. 3 months ago, it was almost a point of dismissive, and it wasn't going to affect us. 2 months ago, we probably thought there's something there. We got to be cautious. A month ago, we started to see the reality, and now we're week to week, day to day, hour to hour. It is just changing faster than the airline industry, unlike anything I've seen since 9/11. I was around during 9/11, and I was working for another airline at the time, but very different from that. 9/11 was an immediate suspension of airspace for 2 to 3 days, and it was just a confidence measure to the people that were traveling yourselves, that security was going to be fine. This is quite different. This is some sort of an enemy you can't see, you can't predict, you don't know where it's going to be in, and it's plagued the world with fear more than anything, and it's justified with what we see. So we're seeing almost like a logarithmic decrease in loads. So the airports is just getting increasingly quieter and quieter, and you're seeing decisions to slash routes, and they need to be done immediately, if not yesterday, to be able to keep up with a bleeding balance sheet.
Yeah, people are always, especially travelers, are just fascinated with. All right, I think we are back. I think the whole internet is is being taxed. Trying again. Those of you, if you're back, we will resume. Just right. All right, I think we have got. All right, I think we are back. I think the whole. All right, sorry about that. I think we're back. I think that the whole internet infrastructure is being taxed. People are getting out work enjoying their happy hours. So apologies for that. I know as people will come back in and hopefully found the new thread and haven't given up. We were just talking to Tim Skeet, president of Traveler Century Club, on what it's like. He's got an airline job. If you can tell us again what you
Of
do
course,
at Calgary Airport
of
and
course.
what your day was like a month ago and what your day is like now at the
Yeah,
airport.
of course. Getting back to that, I am a manager at the airport of the ground services group. So those um, agents who check you in, they board you on flights, they get you going on your way, or they, as of now, reissue or exchange your flights. About a month ago, it would be more of starting the day off with what's happening right now, what's on the go, what needs the attention. It was very much a boots on the ground. Let's get out there and serve the customer what's needing to be done. There would be a focus on, of course, we have international flights happening here. We got our US transborder flights, and then, of course, our flights between our hubs as well to focus on. There's always the people issue. There's other issues that always go on, like any other business, that just affects the way you run the business, and that's part of my role. The way it's evolved in the last month is I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with IATA Timatic. Timatic is that information sheet. It's almost like that guideline to the airline agents to say, this person with this passport, with this residence card can go here or here. It was very simple. Unfortunately, the process hasn't failed. Thank goodness IATA Timatic has not fallen down, but updates would probably happen once a month before, and you would see maybe a country or two. It has progressed from at first this week, it was these couple countries. And then a couple days later, added on these countries. And then a day later, and then it's come down to a couple times a day. We're almost at a point that it's hourly. So our shift has gone from dealing with lots of customers and minimal changes to minimal customers and maximum changes, because if you're trying to travel anywhere right now, I don't know where you can really get outside of Canada unless you have a legal right to be in that country as a resident or citizen. And you're especially with any country in the world, like say you lived in Tuvalu, how the heck are you getting there? Because you can't go through Fiji right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
So the agents, their time, it takes so long to make sure, is this going to be okay? And we even had a situation um, over a week ago. We had people going to India, and just in the middle of their travel, when they got to their connection point, the rules changed again. Of course, you can imagine the frustration and sadness when you have two people with an Indian citizenship and one baby who's got a Canadian citizenship. They can't go.
Hmm.
So there are new challenges for the staff to work through. It's different empathy out there. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Like I was saying before, there was 9/11 where the world can see it. They can see a timeline out
Hmm.
of it. This is just completely, it's almost like the suspension of that day until we get out of that. So it's very unusual for the staffing right now.
And what about you mentioned Thematic, and that's one that in EPS, whenever we have a visa question and I see it, I reply, check Thematic, because that is the one thing that will determine will the airline employee actually let you on the plane. And I feel like sometimes even things that might be a little poorly defined, once you can get to the country, you might have a better shot than say the boarding agents in Amsterdam letting you on.
Mhm.
The United website and the KLM website have been two good ones that provide free access to customers to check the information. But talk a bit more about that system and how it works, and when we're hopefully back traveling in a few months or whenever it is,
Mhm.
how that actually works, and for those that are totally new and hearing that term for the
Um,
first time.
of course. Thanks, Stefan. The one thing is again, I was saying earlier, I'm not sure if it got cut off, but Timatic works of I'm a traveler and I'm holding a Canadian passport. And I want to go to, I just saw a greetings from Algeria come up. So let's just pick Algeria. So what do I have to get into Algeria? So there is something between the Canadian government with a Canadian passport and resident, which I am, and going to visit Algeria, of which existing before that, it was a visa. Now, let's say that Algeria has updated and said, you don't need a visa anymore. It's okay. The problem is they have to update Timatic because that agent who is at a computer checking you in to go to Algeria,
Hmm.
okay, I'm looking at that and I see what you're saying, what the Algerian embassy is telling you here, but they need to tell us through Timatic. It's their responsibility and the Canadian government, the two together, to connect the dots. At that point, that's the go ahead for the airline agent to board you. A more realistic example is, and what you may have encountered difficulty is, I think it's about 10 years ago, going to Germany or anywhere within Europe, they changed up the restrictions that you had to be there only for a maximum of, you had to have a passport that was valid for 6 months from 3 months, and you had to have a return ticket out of there. And we know sometimes we go into it, these countries, and we don't have that return ticket because we're thinking our travel is a little more organic as
Hmm.
big travelers. We're thinking, I'm going to go to Germany, but then I'm going to go down to
Hmm.
Austria, and then over to Romania, and then maybe into wherever, let's say into the Caucasus, but I'm going to do land. That still doesn't satisfy the airline who said the risk to the airline, and I can't speak for fines for Germany, but I know for France, if you send somebody who is non-compliant into France, they trigger it to the airline, and it is a whopping 15,000 euro fine. And that agent, you can imagine, there's always a discipline measures to find out and an investigation if they fail to do their due diligence to make sure they did it right. So that's why Timatic um, is very important to yourselves, ourselves, for traveling, and also for the airline and airline agents for making sure everything is read carefully. And before this event, it's been always about, do I have the right passport and visa? Now it's that health issue that's always been there,
Hmm. Hmm.
but now that they're adding that layer onto it, or they're adding things like funds onto it. And do they have insurance that will cover COVID? And do they have, say, $5,000 of accessible
Hmm.
funds?
Hmm.
Um, there are so many different things that you might say, well, I've got the passport, but there could be the health, the insurance, now the funds. And it's dramatically changed the borders as we've benefited from in the past of freely doing it. It's not free anymore. It's very restricted as every country is grasping with this issue.
Well, we've got one question: when you think the border closures and restrictions will go away, which I don't know that you have any crystal ball.
No,
But maybe
I
what would I mean, I felt like, okay, I mean, it's a huge risk for any political figure or business to say at X. I mean, China's been dealing with this and doesn't really have an answer of who can say everything's okay, and it's gigantic political risk.
I I really don't know. This is, I feel I'm like everybody else. I'm on the sidelines of this. And I think even CEOs and presidents, prime ministers also feel sort of, well, they have a driving voice. I'm watching them, and I don't think they're lacking leadership in the decision they're making yesterday and changing it today. They just don't know what the best decisions are. So I, I honestly think I can only tell you how I believe. And the way I was a month ago is let's fight through this. That's clearly not a winning battle. That's not going to win. So I think our most pragmatic approach to get out of this is let's let the hammer fall. I'll stay in my house as long as I have to, if that makes it faster for me to get to Tuvalu, because I've always wanted to go to the country that has an airport code called fun.
Yeah.
I'm a fun guy. And I was having a great conversation with a TCC member last night, Randy, about that. And I'm not sure if he's on here today. I told him we would do it, but he's out of San Diego. And um, that's right now, I guess the best we can do is talk about what we know, what we experience, and we've got to re-excite people around the world of what we've seen, what we know, and not lament on how long. How long is right now irrelevant. We just got to do our part, I guess.
Got a question shifting over to
Yeah.
TCC. Meva's asking about the qualification requirements for Travelers Century Club, and there's both provisional and full members, as I
Of,
know.
of course, yeah. Most of the information can be found through our website, but of course, you can always come through our info at travelercenturyclub.org. We can answer that, and it's 50 is the marker on the Traveler Century Club list, and for a provision, and 100 for a full member. And your 100th is always memorable, and I I think I remember mine. It was Lampedusa when we landed there. So, and for my wife, it was St. Martin. So, it's it's a great club. It has great camaraderie. The luncheons, the socials are a fantastic way to connect with like-minded people. Our families and friends don't understand us. We do. So that's why it's imperative to be on chats like this, organizations that encourage travel and how do I get to that next place. More than ever, this will be incredible resources going forward.
Linda Smith Tab is a good friend of mine. She's trying to get back from, she's been trying every way to get from Australia back to Illinois in the US.
Okay.
And she's a silver TCC member, by the way. So can
Mm-hmm.
you get her home?
Thank you. Uh, hey, Linda, PM me your details. I can see who I know. Which airline you're flying is going to be the key part. Your record locator and your ticket number. I can see who I know with the airline you're flying with to see how we can leverage alliances and loyalty to recognize that you need to be closer to your family back in Illinois. And by the way, thank you for being a silver TCC. That's a great accomplishment.
Linda, do you remember what your silver qualifying territory is?
For me,
Or Linda,
oh,
which one got her to the silver? Yeah. I saw Dave Homiak joined, and that made me think about airline non-rev benefits, which a lot of travelers are fascinated by. And
mhm,
I think what one time when we talked about it, I was surprised how, at least through your airline, the potential non-rev benefits extend way past what I would think of as the traditional partners like Star Alliance or One World or
mhm,
Sky Team. That there's actually a range of it. So without giving away the secrets, what
yeah.
how does that all work? How are all these non-rev benefits coordinated across airlines? That's a curiosity to me.
Yeah, it's that is generally managed by a separate department within each airline that does look at travel benefits, as it would probably be named across most airlines, and they have created what are called Z fares, ZED, um, and that stands for Zonal Employee Discounts. And it's not secretive from the airline, so I'm not giving out any top secrets, but it's negotiated between two airlines to see what type of a zonal employee discount that they can offer the mutual airline employees. It has offered flexibility. It has been the driver for my wife and I to see 166 countries, and only a couple of those have been on revenue tickets. So, of course, I have extreme loyalty to my current company, my past company, and and their benefits I value, and I'm trusting and hoping they're still going to be there in some format going forward. If not, I'm going to be following people like Stefan for figuring out how to use my miles to
Well, that's
do
one thing
it.
I've noticed, that talking with even the people who run the frequent flyer programs at airlines, they actually know nothing about their own programs, because they spend all their time figuring out how to game their employee benefits. And I don't know if it would be better or worse to have them understand the programs, but there is this huge disconnect of of what the different what the different worlds look like, and both are after the same thing. And I remember talking to actually, she's a lapsed TCC member, but a
Mhm.
Delta Airlines purser in Seattle, and we've seen her on a number of the flights to Shanghai that I go, and she was talking about how Delta employees were so frustrated when Delta Diamond Status launched this optional, what they call choice benefits option, of a global upgrade certificate, and they were trying to figure out if the GUC, the Gooks, if they were jumping over the way the employees were gaming the system to get the
Yeah,
business class seats on those flights. And it was everybody was frustrated on the
yeah,
employee side, I guess, when they felt like they were getting their seats taken from them, and we're saying we should get the seats
yeah.
as customers. Speaking to the image of and I, full disclosure for those who don't know, I am a board member of TCC. So uh, Zach Forbes, who earlier noted that a flight did leave from New York to Japan today,
I saw
he's
that.
asking, is a fax machine still necessary in submitting a TCC application?
It makes certain people feel good. So let's not quickly rush that other group out to pasture. But no, no, you can clearly see we have an email. You can scan into take a picture with your phone, PDF, boom, send it off. Um, Joanne, who is taking care of our office admin, high tech, all the way. Our website is not. Apologies about that. That is being discussed, of course, what we can do. And this might be our best time to do it. We don't have places to go, so we have better time to look at our own capital investment into what we do as an organization. I saw a couple others up there. Greetings from Cameroon. I love it. I haven't been to Cameroon, so I'm going to reach out to that person at some point. But somebody I saw asked, "How do you contact me?" My email is on the TCC. I'm the Western Canada chapter coordinator. Take it for what it is. We haven't had a meeting in some time because of my involvement with the board, but my email is right there. So by all means, anybody is always welcome to. Just I kindly ask so it doesn't get dumped into spam. Really frame out your question, um, and put a heading on a subject, TCC member question or prospective member question, something like that, so I can easily find it. Um,
I think the prospective member is important. That TCC events, if you're traveling in the area where there's an event happening, of course, all the
Absolutely.
events are on pause now, as well
Yeah.
as until the foreseeable future. But if
Yeah.
if you see an event going on, we can certainly contact the chapter coordinator, contact us, and we're happy to welcome guests
Yeah.
to attend an in-person event. And the online is great, but we're all feeling right now what it is like to not be having the in-person
Mhm.
connection. Zach said he was joking about the fax machine, but that did make me think of the famous Condor class on Aerolíneas Argentinas, that for years, until I think fairly recently, they had that plane that was flying the JFK route that did have the fax machine in business class, and people were just wanted to book the ticket to be able to send a
Yeah.
fax in flight.
Yeah.
So the feel free, those of you joining in, I see people popping up. Feel free to ask airline travel questions. I mean, Tim, what are the precautions you would take if somebody has to get on a plane right now? What would you do as a passenger from what all the briefings you've attended, everything you've seen?
Th- This
Um,
is this is really important because there's some people with upcoming flights, and they have to expect once the WHO made that announcement 11 days ago, 11 days, that's the equivalent of almost like a wartime decree. So all of your passenger bills of rights out the window, out the window. So you have to expect that from that point on, you're subject to a lot of scrutiny. Now, the biggest one lately, coughing. If anybody is showing signs of sweating, if they're showing signs of nasal issues, I'm going to tell you, you're not getting on a plane. You got to get that in check quick. So you got to get some echinacea. You got to do whatever it takes to get yourself right for your flight home, or you will be denied. And um, I'm hearing about cases of this. I'm hearing about even shaming on planes. I heard from another airline where a customer got shamed off a plane because they just did this. And three rows lost their marbles. And it was almost like a fist fight.
hmm.
It's a sad case. So you gotta be careful on that. If you are not sure, a good proactive measure for you to do is to wear a mask. Make sure it's a surgeon grade mask. Um, I can give you a little background on the masks as well, because we have a chief medical officer who talks with, of course, you can imagine flight attendants, and they are very exposed in that container with to anybody. So we have a phenomenal CMO who has talked about this, and everybody walking around with a mask. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, but an N95 mask is what you need if you don't want to get something. If you're wearing anything other than that, I've seen people with painter's masks. We've all seen the funny pictures of, I don't know, somebody wearing panties. They're wearing a water bottle with adapted apparatus. It's quite funny. We've seen those, but all that won't work. It's got to be an N95 and higher. But if you've got something of a potential contagion or you're concerned for others, it's a surgeon grade mask, similar to what surgeons wear.
Yeah.
Be mindful of that there's a lot of people out there who do need it. So don't do a rush on a store to go buy that stuff. You should be at home isolating, not needing a mask because you're at home. So save those things. But that's what you
That's
need to
a
know for
cultural
boarding.
difference. I've heard of a friend from China who's in the U.S. and saying just why can't we get past the point? She would feel more comfortable if everybody in America, where she is now, would just start wearing masks. And even if it doesn't help 100%, does it help, 1% or 5%? And it seems like the cultural bias against wearing mask means you're sick, means I'm scared. That seems to go out the window. But even these things about airlines potentially or not telling employees they can't wear masks and that it seems like at this point the
Yeah.
social stigma aspect should be out the window.
Uh, I will say from my airline, right from the beginning, we had gloves available for anybody who wanted to wear, masks available for anybody who wanted to wear. We gave them the choices. So very empowering to the staff, letting them make the best decisions for themselves, their families. That's what matters right now for us, is our focus on our people and insulating their, just like any company, your people are your greatest assets. If you insulate your people, you take care of them, they take care of your customer. I think we've heard that time and again. I see a question that came up, have an N95
Yep.
used once, okay to reuse? Garbage. 20 to 30 minutes is usually what a mask will allow you, 30, maybe 40. But that's coming from, I'm not an official on this. I've only heard this because we have EMS who work in our airport, and they gave us some feedback of what we need to do if we're wearing a mask. If you want to wear one, this is how you do it. And then when you have that mask on, stop touching your face because anybody's wearing a mask, they're probably, um, we had a little fun game one day last week. We watched people with masks and without. And anybody with a mask, they touch their face probably 5 times more than anybody
Mm-hmm.
without. Different to looking at the people, say in Asia, specifically, I would say Japan, they're used to wearing a mask. It's a comfort, it's normal, and they're not touching their face and adjusting constantly. So I think we have a lot to learn by watching those habits from those nations. And yeah, if people wear a mask, don't fear them. Just think of that's their way of saying I'm trying to be socially responsible, or that's my comfort level. Is how I interpret it, at least. Not a doctor. Dr. Google.
Yeah, but you're working in an environment where you're exposed to a lot of people, and as you said, you're getting advice from people who have it on the line to tell your fellow colleagues
Mhm,
what they should be doing. And we'll
mhm.
I want to pause for a moment because you're
Of
such a
course.
happy, personable guy, and talk a little bit about Canada. And people have an intense interest in the TCC list. So the website says why Newfoundland and Labrador are not on there. The
Okay.
website doesn't say anything about Prince Edward Island, which is maybe
Okay.
my wife's favorite place in North America. That's the first time when she saw that years ago, and I only went there because of the TCC list. She said, "This is the North America I dreamed of. It's the land of Anne of Green Gables, the
Yeah.
lobster shore dinners, the unlimited mussels, the I
Mhm.
guess the potatoes are their other claim to fame." So you want to take that away from me? Is that what I understand?
Well, the one thing is, first of all, I have not been east of Quebec. So as a Canadian, I've been to 166 countries, and I haven't been to 4 of my own provinces. So speaking to the TCC specifically, let's first address the Newfoundland Labrador. Newfoundland and Labrador are a province together. It's not Newfoundland exclusive. Labrador is attached to Quebec. That's it. Game over. It's not for consideration. It's not a cultural, yeah, sure, there might be a cultural difference, but our rules do not determine cultural differences. That would be other lists, not the TCC. So I think that's identified on our questions on
Mhm,
our
mhm.
website, but um, that should explain that one. The PEI one, this is where you might see a Canadian become feisty. Probably, probably to the same effect. You might see an American become feisty with Hawaii or an Australian with Tanzania, sorry, Tasmania. My apologies, Tasmania, and uh, and so forth. I think we all have that. It's not that we're making UN law here. Good golly, Canada's Canada, and PEI is part of Canada. We're saying for the purpose of travel and for the subset of rules we have, and the fact that we have a marker of 100,000 population, and I believe PEI is around 160. 160, they are an island, they are a province, self-governed, just like the state of Hawaii or the state of Alaska. Therefore, it's considered a destination. It's it's frustrating, I know, for a lot of Canadians because that is where Confederation was signed. Um, and it does make it a challenge to uphold and justify. Again, we're not changing the face of Canada. We're giving you, if not anything else, a reason to go see a really cool country, a cool territory or province. So my suggestion is once this lifts, that's a great place to go to. And I have many friends from there, and they ridicule me all the time that I haven't been there. But and same with my wife. She she's saying, "When are we going out east?" And and this year, if things open up, we go somewhere all the time for our anniversary. And in June, it might not be international, and it might not even it might not be. We don't know what that looks like. But if it's within Canada, I got another country I can get. So see the optimism in that. And I use country loosely, country and territories. But when we say country, we mean country and territory. Um, and I'm certain we'll have a great time once we can.
How is the list determined? What is the process? We've got the rules that are clearly published, but the
Mhm.
mechanism for adding, removing, changing territories.
Yeah. We do have one board member who takes on a role of curating the thread and looking at the past. If we're looking at taking a country or territory off the list, or adding it onto the list, we also look at the ramifications of what it will do for the members. Some will be clear cut. I think a good clear cut one where we're not waiting, say, 2 years. I think it's every December, not this December, but the following December, we will deliberate on it. So it's usually every 2 years we do this. It's one to make it not a constantly transient changing list. It keeps it a little more grounded. And that's one of the appeals of the TCC. But we know with that, sometimes there's an immediate country change. And I think rule one, where if it's identified as a UN country, um, it'll be noted. Now, I think we have one, I'm looking at my map, is what I'm looking up at here. And I think it's part of Papua New Guinea. It's not
Mhm.
Bismarck. What is it again?
Bougainville.
Bougainville, yeah. So Bougainville, they have voted to leave Papua New Guinea, but it still has to be ratified, I think, by Papua New Guinea. And if that happens, then they'll be the next country in the world. Of course, the TCC and probably every other list will immediately recognize that if it's recognized by the UN. So the UN list is quick. Another one is while it's not a new country, a name change. Swaziland went to Eswatini. Immediately, it's Eswatini. Now, we sometimes have a lapse in updating that through our whole website, but we recognize it's Eswatini. We might even identify formerly Swaziland because we have a lot of travelers who are, good golly, I'm country territory 294. What's Eswatini? And we might think, is that on a border with Bosnia, or we're trying to figure our way out, or what continent is that? And it's not to say we're geo, but we're just chasing our own lists, of course, to be part of that great travel race, which we're looking forward to resuming.
Fantastic. And if people are interested in getting involved with TCC, what should they do? Find you on the TCC
You can
chapter page and start a dialogue?
you can email me personally, and if you want to, Stefan, you can put that up there. But it's info@travelercentriclub.org, and we'd be pleased to help you through that. So, of course, the benefits of being with the TCC is the recognition of membership. It is um, um, some tangibles you get with that, certificates and pins and that. But there's also, bigger than that to me, is the community. It is that opportunity. And I'm going to do a plug here, even though we're not thinking of it now. It is in a year and a bit. There is going to be the most fantastic conference of travelers converging to Malta. Um, in the past, we've had about 60, 50 members join. I think, especially now more than ever, emerging from this, there is going to be a surge of people saying, sign me up. I want to be around people. I want to be around the travelers who do travel and get that opportunity to meet others. So we got 13 months away, lots of time to plan and to put that on our calendars. And it's not expensive. Um, I don't know, it generally includes meals and everything, but it could be around $500 ish, all in all, for the whole 3 to 4 day event, plus your hotels, of course, and your airfare. But
Mhm.
it's a great opportunity. And if anybody's watching this right now who is at Barcelona, I welcome you to speak up and tell us how you liked it, or even didn't like it. But I would say then you're the one person, because we did a feedback form from it, and it was overwhelming the number of people who enjoyed it. And I'm going to even go back to more recently, and to compliment Stefan here and Jeff Hool, who is the coordinator for Washington, together with a couple of other board members, Steve and coordinator Charles Merkel. Fantastic put together event in Washington, D.C. I can't even begin to tell you how good it was. We had a great lineup of talks. Um, One of my favorite is I'm not as much starstruck by seeing who's at an event, albeit I will do the name drop of Tiffany Funk was there. We had Rudy Maxa, um, Patricia Schultz, who wrote A Thousand Places to See Before You Die. Maybe not. We don't want to use the before you die right now, but the lineup of people, but then also the energy brought forward by those 35, or no, I don't know, about 30 members who did come around the DC across the US. We had one come from Europe. Lan and I came from Canada, and it was exciting to see what we could put together. But I think I was going with my favorite presentation was Stefan talking about Syria, and he's on a FaceTime with his handler, his visa handler, whoever was taking care of him from Syria, while she was in Syria, saying, "This is how you do it." Isn't that cool? Now, I know we can do this, and what the TCC needs to do in this space going forward is this. We've reached out to our chapter coordinators. Next is reaching out to our membership. But then, till that happens, this is going to be our short-term reality. And I'll encourage you to watch, stay close, and sign up for one, and just to be part of it. And uh, while we were in Washington, we did an Oceania meetup. I think there was about 7 or 8. So Petro, who is a moderator for EPS, she was on it as well with Robin, who is an avid TCer, and myself, and we were even bringing Stefan into the fold, and Steve, and the connection. You heard from people there; they were saying this is really cool. It wasn't perfect, but we saw the evolution to what can really excite us to our future travel and give us a forum to celebrate and share our past travel.
All right, fantastic. We'll bring it to a close there. Thank you for joining us, Tim. We'll have you back for
My
more
pleasure.
questions as the travel situation changes and as TCC takes on new initiatives. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you, everybody.